Laura Okmin, who's going to be on the sidelines for the Super Bowl. Westwood One, a game you can listen to here on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star, brought to you by Flight by Yingling. Laura, you know, it's hard because you see everybody that you know so well, but you're busy, and it's like, I'll catch up to you later.
Totally.
Totally catch up to you later.
I was very happy to be in the middle of my interviews and what I was doing this morning, and all of a sudden have somebody tap me while I was listening to an interview and kind of turned around to be like, What are you doing? I'm in the middle. And it was Daryl. And I was like, Moose can interrupt anything he wants. But I was so happy. I loved hearing that conversation. And I can't stress this enough. I was so fortunate to be partners with Moose for either 4 or 5 years with the NFL on Fox. And I was with Daryl and I was with Kenny Albert. And he is my fullback in life. Like, I can't stress this enough to you all, that there was a season, I had a really tough season and a lot going on. And I didn't say anything all season, and I privately, quietly struggled. And at the end of the year, I called Daryl, and I was like, I need to talk to you. And so I just said, here's what I was going through all season. And there's silence, and he was like, I'm so sorry. And I said, what are you sorry about? You were one of my best things about the season. And he said, I should have seen that. I should have seen that you were upset. I should have seen you were struggling. And I was like, I hid it. I wasn't showing it to anyone. And he said, I pride myself on being able to read you. And so truly, this man is a fullback in life of looking out for trying to open your holes to make your life easier and better. So I could not think of a better person than Moose that I followed.
You know, Laura, that's a great story, and I love that. But look, I mean, you're a pro. This is going to be your 5th Super Bowl, right, for Westwood One. You know what you're doing, and you bring it every time. But I think as broadcasters, we do that, so we're harder on ourselves than anybody else is.
And I've had more of those conversations, every year, Super Bowl week and Radio Row. I have an organization for women in sports. It's called Galvanize, and I'm here with them also this week. And what the whole motto of Galvanize is you're who, not your do. We don't care about what you do. We care about who you are. And so if you go over and sit down over at our little podium of 7 Rockstar Women, we are only talking about who you are. And what amazes me is how many former athletes come over and sit down with us and talk about how in their head they are as broadcasters. So it does not matter if you're a Hall of Famer, but all of a sudden you sit down in this new world and you're trying to all of a sudden, it's not about just your physicality. It's not about what you've been doing since you're a kid. It's about us being afraid of saying the wrong thing, no matter how long you've been doing it. So I find with our group of broadcasters, if you're players or if you're players, if you've been a broadcaster your whole life, whatever it is, there's such an insecurity more than ever about making sure we get it right.
Well, I mean, because you never know if you get a new boss who doesn't like you. Now you're done. You say something wrong. A suggestion here in today's world, especially with social media, that, how often do you say something and you're trying to put those words right back in your mouth as soon as you say them?
And it's as a woman in sports. So I started about 32 years ago, so there weren't many of us. And the fear of saying something wrong, because how I always equate it is, I've been doing it 3 decades, but if I say the wrong thing on the Super Bowl, if I call George Kittle George Edwards, she is so stupid. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Now, a man says something stupid, but we are stupid. And so I learned that at a very quick age of making sure that you say the right thing or else you're kind of thrown out, where that's another woman who knows sports. And that's paralyzing to go through life, not just a career. It creeps into your life of, how do I make sure I'm always saying the right thing so nobody thinks I don't belong here, because you're constantly being told you don't belong here.
You know, Laura, I found that fascinating. How difficult was it to break into this business 30 years ago?
It was really
difficult.
As a woman, for all of
anybody,
us, right?
Sure, of course.
But for a woman, it was but what I would say is this: it was so difficult to break in, but what was harder was staying in. And so, to be doing this as long as I have been, that would have surprised me, because once I hit 30, I was always asked, what do you want to do next? And I was like, but I'm just getting good. And they'd be like, but women don't age on camera. And I never saw women past 30. And so what I try really hard to do is show all the women, of Galvanize, of all these women, want them to see women north of 40. Now I want them to see women north of 50. crushing it. And so still doing what we're doing, because we see men age. We see men in the booth who are in their 70s now, in their 80s, and we are never the way the world is, we're always questioning now. But normally that we're like, boy, look at their poise. They've been doing this forever, and for women it's been more of how long can she do this for? And so it was very hard to stay in. I feel to get in. I feel very sorry for that young woman who went through a lot, but it's also been really hard to stay here. And I didn't call my first Super Bowl until I think I was 50. And so that's pretty awesome also, to say that I thought that was kind of done, and I didn't think I would have that in my career, and to be able to do it at an age where I'm so appreciative, where I'm so much better, where I'm really good now. And I know the work that it took here. As much as when I was 30 or 40, I would have been like, I can't wait to call a Super Bowl. I love to be doing it at this age. I did not know we were going to be talking about aging as a woman.
But out of curiosity, as we visit with Laura Okmin here on the Blitz, Joe's got 5 daughters. I've got 1. I'm a girl dad, right?
That's why we're having this conversation.
Exactly, yes, right?
Yes.
How much better has it gotten over the last 30 years for women in sports broadcasting?
I struggle with this because today is Girls and Women in Sports Day, and so I'm usually asked a lot to do interviews because of Galvanize. I started it a dozen years ago, and it's over 5,000 women all over sports. It's not just women on camera, it's everything. And so I'm asked a lot about that, and I think people think I'm going to give a Pollyanna rah-rah, answer, and I don't. Because what I say is, the cool thing is, my first Super Bowl was in '92. I called 2 Olympics. I've done a lot of really big events, but in the beginning I would count women because I could. And so I'd be like, okay, for years it was 1 hand. I could count them on 1 hand. And then suddenly it was 2 hands. And the cool thing is, we can't count today. There's a ton of women, and that's awesome in numbers. But when we start going, women who are making an impact, women who are hiring women and men, women who are making decisions, I'm back to counting that on 1 hand. So we've come far in numbers, but also what I would say as fathers of daughters, that you'll hate this, but it's important to know. The most important thing I say is, if we've changed so much, why are these young women calling me at 3 a.m. and telling me they're going through the same thing I went through 30 years ago? And so that is kind of in a nutshell what I would say, and why Galvanize was so important. They'll get better at their jobs, and they'll get their reps, but at the end of the day, I struggled. I had a hard time navigating it, and I wanted to make sure that they had confidence in themselves, in each other, and to give them a network of women to go through this with. A mentor is important, but even more so, I wanted them to be able to look at another woman and go, how are you handling this? How are you handling it when a coach says, I've really enjoyed, you building this relationship for 2 years, but why don't I take you to lunch so we can get to know each other better? And there's no right or wrong. It's just, how are you going to handle that when it happens? And you can't usually ask your male friends or even your girlfriends how you do it. So what I would say, it hasn't changed enough, because we still need that network to really help women navigate a very male-dominated industry.
Laura Okmin here on the Blitz, 94.1 at San Antonio Sports Star. She'll be part of the broadcast Sunday for the Super Bowl. I know we're running short on time. They're saying you got to run off to the next one. You've got that. You've got it. It's going to be fun. Have a great call on Sunday.
I so appreciated the conversation. Thank you for raising good young women, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Laura Okmin here on the Blitz, 94.1 at San Antonio Sports Star.
AA Best Bail Bonds. Big game coverage live from Las Vegas. Powered by Southern Recipe Small Batch Pork Rinds, Synergenics, and 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star.